Night after night, Nia Harper's mop swept across Halberton Tower's polished floors, her existence barely registered by the suits who ran the place. Oxford-educated but forced to abandon her scholarship, she hid her mastery of Arabic behind a janitor's uniform, silently watching the corporate world from its margins. When Saudi billionaire Khalid Al-Saim arrived for a make-or-break deal and spoke in his native tongue, watching the executives flounder with translation apps and nervous smiles, no one expected the black woman in maintenance blues to respond with perfect classical Arabic. In that electric moment, as stunned silence fell across the boardroom, everything changed, the invisible suddenly seen, the voiceless finding power, and a journey beginning with one sentence that would shatter every glass ceiling above her. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Nia Harper guided her mop across the marble floor of Halberton Towers. The night shift was quiet, just how she liked it. Most of the executives had gone home hours ago, leaving behind empty coffee cups and the lingering scent of expensive cologne. At 32, Nia had perfected the art of invisibility. She moved through the prestigious Manhattan skyscraper like a ghost, seen but not seen, heard but not heard. Tonight, however, voices drifted from the cracked door of Conference Room B. Nia slowed her movements, the mop creating gentle swishing sounds as she worked closer to the doorway. Al-Saim lands in New York on Thursday, a tense male voice announced. If we botch this meeting, kiss the merger goodbye. Another voice, female, sharp, cut in. We won't botch it. I've researched Saudi business protocols extensively. Nia recognized the second voice as belonging to Marina Westfield, the marketing VP who never failed to drop her coffee cup directly onto the floor instead of the trash can that stood mere inches away. Always with a dismissive "someone will get it" that made Nia's jaw clenched. As the executives continued their discussion about the impending visit from Saudi tycoon Khalid Al-Saim, Nia absorbed every detail. A $200 million investment. A translator scheduled. The CEO insisting on impeccable presentations. She filed away the information automatically, though she wasn't sure why. It wasn't like anyone would ask her opinion. When the meeting concluded, Nia quickly moved her cart down the hall, pretending to focus on a stubborn scuff mark as executives filed out. None of them looked her way. Dawn was breaking over Brooklyn when Nia's key turned in the lock of her modest apartment. The place was small but neat, bargain furniture arranged with care, walls decorated with framed vintage maps of the Middle East and North Africa. "You're late," came a sleepy voice from the couch. Jordan, her 23-year-old brother, sat up with tousled hair and tired eyes. He was thin, too thin, and the blue light from his laptop cast shadows on his face. Over time, Nia explained, setting down her bag. "You been up all night again?" Jordan shrugged, trying to figure out how to pay this. He held up an envelope that Nia recognized immediately, another student loan notice. Though he dropped out 2 years ago, the debt remained, growing like a shadow. Nia took off her jacket and sat beside him. "We'll figure it out. We always do." She didn't mention the extra hours she'd picked up or the side gig translating pamphlets for a local community center. Since their parents' car accident 14 years ago, she'd become expert at carrying burdens silently. Her own scholarship to Oxford, her ticket out, her dream, had been surrendered without complaint when Jordan needed her after his accident during his freshman year. "Some sacrifices you just made. Family was family. Get some sleep," she told him gently. "I'll make breakfast later." Once Jordan had shuffled off to his bedroom, Nia pulled a worn book from her bag. The Arabic text flowed across the pages in elegant script. Her fingers traced the words as she read, her lips forming complex sounds with practiced ease. For 30 minutes, she wasn't a janitor but a scholar again, lost in the poetry of Nizar Kabani. Someone spilled coffee all over the executive bathroom sink, Ana Torres said, adjusting her cleaning uniform in the staff locker room the next evening. $10 says it was that Marina woman." Nia smiled as she tied her hair back. "You're probably right." Anna had worked at Halberton longer than anyone, 15 years of cleaning up after people who pretended not to see her. She was the closest thing Nia had to a friend at work. "You know," Anna said, watching as Nia tucked her Arabic book into her locker, "you're too smart to be here." Nia shrugged. We're all just trying to pay bills. No, I mean it. I see you reading. Those foreign books. My cousin works 3 jobs and still can't learn English. And here you are reading. What is that, anyway? Arabic poetry, Nia said simply. Anna shook her head in wonder. See? Too smart. Before Nia could respond, their supervisor poked his head in. All hands in the main lobby in 10 minutes. CEO wants to address the staff. The staff, apparently, meant everyone. Executives in tailored suits alongside maintenance workers and janitors. Nia stood at the back, her mop and bucket close at hand. The marble lobby gleamed under chandelier light, and at the center stood Walter Langford, the company's CEO, a man who had never once looked Nia in the eye despite her cleaning his office. 3 times a week for 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen of Halberton, Walter began, his voice echoing through the atrium. Tomorrow marks a historic opportunity for our company. Khalid Al-Saim, one of the wealthiest investors in the Middle East, will be gracing us with his presence. Walter continued, describing Al-Saim's business empire, the potential investment, and the need for everything to be absolutely perfect. His gaze swept over the crowd of executives, lingering on Marina, who stood straight-backed and attentive, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. This is not just a meeting, Walter emphasized. This is a cultural exchange. Al-Saim represents old money, traditional values combined with forward thinking. We must impress him at every turn. As the speech continued, Nia quietly resumed mopping. The perimeter of the lobby, just feet from where Walter stood. Not once did he acknowledge the cleaning staff, though his directive that everything must be spotless was clearly meant for them. When the gathering dispersed, Nia found herself near the elevators beside Brian Reynolds, an IT specialist who always greeted her with a nod. Unlike most, he at least seemed to register her existence. Big day tomorrow, he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. Sounds like it, Nia replied, surprised at being addressed. They're in a panic about the translator, Brian added in a low voice. The agency still hasn't confirmed. Before Nia could respond, the elevator arrived, and Brian stepped in with a small wave. The doors closed, leaving Nia alone with her mop and a piece of information that tugged at her thoughts. That night, Nia dreamed of Oxford. The honey-colored stone buildings, the libraries with their ancient books, her professors who had seen such promise in her. Near Eastern studies had been her passion, languages, culture, history. She'd been fluent in Arabic before she arrived, had picked up Persian quickly after that eye in the dream. She stood at a podium, presenting her research to a packed lecture hall. But as she spoke, the audience began to dissolve, replaced by her brother. In a hospital bed, monitors beeping around him. The scholarship letter in her hand transformed into medical bills, then into a mop. She woke with a start, her alarm blaring. Another night shift awaited. The day of Al-Saim's visit arrived with a flurry of activity. Nia, having been called in for an early shift, watched from the sidelines as florists delivered exotic arrangements, caterers set up elaborate displays, and security personnel conducted sweeps of the building, in the executive bathroom, which Nia had cleaned twice already that morning. She overheard Marina and another executive intense conversation. The translator called in sick, Marina hissed. Sick? Today of all days. What are we going to do? The other woman asked. Walter will have our heads if this goes wrong. I've downloaded 3 translation apps, Marina replied. Between those and basic English, we'll manage. It's not like Al-Saim doesn't speak any English. He went to Harvard, for God's sake. They exited without noticing Nia in the supply closet. She continued stocking towels, her mind racing. A name from her past echoed in her thoughts, Al-Saim. Why did it sound familiar beyond today's visit? Had she encountered it during her studies? There had been so many prominent families, so many connections between academia and Middle Eastern wealth. She pushed her cart toward the elevators. She passed Brian, who was setting up extra monitors in a conference room. Morning, Nia, he greeted her. Morning, she replied that a harried intern rushed past them, nearly colliding with Nia's cart. Brian steadied the young man with a hand on his shoulder. Whoa there, where's the fire? Sorry, I can't find the West conference room, the intern gasped. I have to set up the translation equipment. Nia pointed down the corridor. Third door. On the right. The one with the blue carpet. The intern thanked her and hurried off. Brian gave Nia an appreciative nod. "Not everyone knows this place like you do," he said. "Thanks for helping him." It was a small moment, but the acknowledgement of her knowledge of anything beyond her ability to clean warmed Nia unexpectedly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. By late afternoon, an unusual stillness had fallen over the building, the calm before the storm. Nia found herself assigned to lobby duty, keeping the already spotless marble floor immaculate. As the hour of Al-Sahim's arrival approached, and then, at precisely 4 o'clock, the glass doors of Halberton Towers slid open, and Khalid Al-Sahim strode in. The lobby fell silent as Khalid Al-Sahim entered, flanked by his entourage. He moved with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to commanding rooms. Tall and distinguished in his perfectly tailored charcoal suit, he wore no traditional Saudi attire, yet carried himself with unmistakable cultural pride. Gold cufflinks caught the light as he extended his hand to Walter Langford. Nia, positioned near a column with her mop, observed the scene with quiet attention. Al-Sahim's security detail scanned the room professionally, while his business associates followed with tablets and portfolios. Outside, through the glass doors, cameras flashed as photographers captured the arrival of the Saudi Tycoon's motorcade, sleek black vehicles with diplomatic plates. "Mr. Al-Sahim," Walter gushed, pumping the man's hand enthusiastically. "What? An honor to welcome you to Halberton Towers." Al-Sahim nodded politely. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Langford. Your reputation precedes you." His English was impeccable, accented but clear. Yet something about the way his eyes assessed the room, taking in not just the executives but the security guards, receptionists, and yes, even Nia with her mop, suggested he missed nothing. As the group moved toward the elevators, Al-Sahim's gaze briefly met Nia's. A moment of curious assessment passed between them before he continued on, leaving Nia with a strange sensation of having been truly seen for the first time in this building. The initial meeting proceeded smoothly until a text message caused Walter to blanch visibly. Nia, refreshing water glasses in the conference room, glimpsed his phone screen. "Translator stuck in Chicago. Storms. No flights until tomorrow." Walter excused himself briefly, and Nia slipped out behind him, returning to her cart in the hallway. Through the partially open door, she could hear the growing tension. "While we wait for Mr. Langford," Marina said brightly, "perhaps I can show you our preliminary portfolio?" Al-Sahim nodded graciously. Though his expression remained neutral, Marina pulled out her phone. "I've downloaded a very sophisticated translation app, just in case we encounter any language barriers." A subtle stiffening in Al-Sahim's posture was the only indication of his response to this somewhat condescending suggestion. His English, after all, had been perfect so far, Walter returned, his smile too wide. "Slight change of plans. Our translator has been delayed. However, we're fully prepared to proceed in English." Al-Sahim inclined his head. "Of course, though occasionally, certain concepts are better expressed in one's native tongue." The meeting continued, with presentations and proposals flowing smoothly, until a complex question about investment structures arose. Al-Sahim turned to one of his advisors and spoke rapidly in Arabic, the musical sounds of the language filling the room. Marina, eager to demonstrate preparedness, held up her phone. "Let me translate that for everyone." She tapped the screen and held it toward the Saudi contingent. The robotic voice that emerged butchered the pronunciation so badly that one of Al-Sahim's younger associates had to suppress a smile. "It says you are concerned about the camel structuring?" Marina frowned at her phone. "That can't be right." A tense laugh rippled through the room. Al-Sahim's expression remained pleasant, but a coolness had entered his eyes. "Capital structuring," he corrected in English. "Perhaps technology is not always the solution." The meeting grew increasingly awkward as cultural nuances were missed and technical terms confused. Nia, now polishing the glass wall that separated the conference room from the hallway, could feel the deal slipping away with each strained exchange. Then Al-Sahim said something that made her freeze. In fluid Arabic, he remarked to his advisor, "They prepared everything except understanding. They see the money but not the mind behind it." The executives laughed nervously, assuming it was a joke. Marina's app translated it as, "The preparation is good. The money and mind work together." Nia's hand stilled on the glass. "That wasn't it." All what he'd said. The mistranslation wasn't just wrong. It was potentially insulting if Al-Saim believed they understood his actual words. Al-Saim, perhaps sensing the disconnect, decided to test the waters. Looking directly at Walter, he spoke a full paragraph in Arabic. Formal, elegant, and deliberately complex, N01 responded. Uncomfortable glances were exchanged. Marina frantically tapped at her failing app without planning to, without even realizing she was going to speak. Nia turned toward the room and replied in Arabic. Her voice was soft but clear, her dialect formal and respectful. You honor us with your wisdom, sir. You say that true partnership requires more than shared profit. It requires shared understanding. That we must not build on shifting sands, but on the solid ground of mutual respect and cultural intelligence. The room went completely silent. Every head turned toward the janitor with the mop in her hands. Khalid Al-Sahim's eyes widened slightly, the only break in his composed demeanor. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. Niam, he said. Yes, Marina recovered first. Well, isn't that cute? She laughed, the sound brittle. She must have memorized a phrase or two. Very multicultural of our cleaning staff. But Al-Sahim was already rising from his chair, his attention fully on Nia. He addressed her again in Arabic, this time with a more complex question about her background and training in the language. Nia responded fluently, explaining briefly that she had studied Near Eastern languages and culture academically. Her Arabic was not memorized phrases but the result of years of dedicated study. Walter Langford stood frozen, his expression oscillating between embarrassment and calculation. The Saudi billionaire was now engaged in animated conversation with a janitor while his executives looked on helplessly. Ms. Al-Sahim paused, looking at Nia expectantly. Harper, she supplied. Nia Harper. Ms. Harper, he continued in English for everyone's benefit. Would you be willing to assist us as interpreter for the remainder of this meeting? It seems you are the most qualified person in the room. Marina's face flushed crimson. Mr. Langford, surely we should wait for the professional translator. Ms. Harper appears to be quite professional. Al-Saim interrupted smoothly. Unless there is some objection to her participation? All eyes turned to Walter, who looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. But the calculation in his eyes had won out over the embarrassment. No objection whatsoever, he said with a forced smile. Nia, please join us. And so, still wearing her cleaning uniform, Nia set aside her mop and took a seat at the gleaming conference table. She felt the weight of every stare, the incredulity from the executives, the barely concealed fury from Marina, and the undisguised interest from Khalid Al-Sahim. As the meeting resumed, Nia translated with precision and cultural sensitivity. She captured not just the words but the intentions behind them, navigating the subtle differences between business Arabic and conversational forms. When technical terms arose, she clarified meanings and provided context that the executives had missed entirely. The atmosphere in the room transformed. What had been stilted and uncomfortable became flowing and productive. Al-Sahim's team visibly relaxed, and even Walter began to look genuinely pleased rather than merely relieved. After 2 hours of productive discussion, Walter called for a short break. As the room cleared, Al-Sahim approached Nia directly. Ms. Harper, I would appreciate a private word, if you have no objection. Walter opened his mouth as if to protest, then thought better of it. Of course. Use my office. It's just down the hall. Once alone in the CEO's expansive office, Al-Sahim switched back to Arabic. You studied at Oxford, he said. It wasn't a question. Nia's surprise must have shown on her face, because he smiled. I remember you. 5 years ago, there was a conference on Gulf investment in Western education. You presented a paper on cultural intelligence in international business negotiations. It was most impressive. Memory flooded back. The conference had been during her final semester before everything changed. Her paper had received recognition, had even been published in a small academic journal. That seemed like another lifetime now. You have an exceptional memory, Mr. Al-Saim, she replied carefully. I remember talent, he said simply. Which is why I find you here, with a mop instead of a degree, rather puzzling. Nia hesitated, then decided on honesty. Life doesn't always follow the path we plan. My parents died when I was 18. My younger brother was in an accident during his Freshman year of college. Someone needed to care for him, to work. My scholarship couldn't cover what we needed. Al saw him, listened intently, his expression thoughtful. So you sacrificed your education to support your family. I didn't see it as a sacrifice, Nia replied. Just a necessity. And yet you maintained your language skills. Impressive. Some passions don't die easily. A knock at the door interrupted them. Walter poked his head in. Sorry to disturb, but we're ready to resume when you are. Al saw him nodded. We will be right there. As they walked back to the conference room, Al saw him. Spoke quietly. I believe, Ms. Harper, that this meeting has become far more interesting than I anticipated. By late afternoon, word had spread throughout Halberton Towers. Employees found excuses to walk past the conference room, stealing glances at the janitor now seated beside the Saudi billionaire. Whispers followed like ripples. Is that Nia? The night cleaner? She speaks Arabic? What the hell is happening? When the meeting finally concluded, Nia felt drained but strangely energized. She had spent hours engaged in the kind of intellectual work she'd once prepared for, translating not just language but culture, helping bridge worlds that often misunderstood each other. As the Saudi delegation prepared to leave, Khalid al-Sahim shook hands with each executive. When he reached Nia, he clasped her hand in both of his. Ms. Harper, he said in English, your assistance today was invaluable. I look forward to continuing our discussions tomorrow. With that, he and his entourage departed, leaving Nia standing. In the lobby surrounded by stunned executives, Walter cleared his throat. Well, Nia, that was unexpected. We'll need to talk about tomorrow's arrangements. Marina stepped forward, her smile not reaching her eyes. Yes, what a lovely surprise. Where did you learn to parrot Arabic phrases so convincingly? Nia met her gaze steadily. Oxford University, Ms. Westfield. I studied there before life took a different turn. She turned to Walter. If you'll excuse me, I need to finish my shift. And with quiet dignity, Nia returned to her cleaning cart. But as she pushed it toward the elevator, she held her head just a little higher than before. For the first time in years, she had been seen not for what she did, but for who she was. Behind her, the executives huddled in urgent conversation. Before the elevator doors closed, she caught Marina's final words. This changes nothing. She's still just the janitor. But Nia knew better. Everything had changed, and it had started with a single sentence spoken in Arabic and the courage to answer. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Nia's Brooklyn apartment. She hadn't slept much. The events of yesterday kept replaying in her mind. The stunned faces, al-Sahim's recognition, the sudden shift from invisibility to the center of attention. Her phone had buzzed with texts from Anna asking what happened after rumors spread through the cleaning staff. Nia rubbed her tired eyes and headed to the kitchen, where Jordan sat hunched over his laptop, a half-eaten bowl of cereal beside him. Morning, he mumbled, not looking up. Hey, she replied, pouring herself coffee. You're up early. Jordan shrugged. Couldn't sleep. Got an idea for a coding project. A small smile touched Nia's lips. It had been months since she'd seen him excited about anything. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at their door. Unusual for 7:30 in the morning. Nia opened the door to find a courier holding a sealed cream-colored envelope. Delivery for Nia Harper, he announced, handing her the envelope and a signature pad. Back in the kitchen, Jordan raised an eyebrow. What's that? You pay off a loan I don't know about. Nia examined the heavy paper envelope. No return address, just her name in elegant script. She slid her finger under the seal and pulled out a card embossed with gold lettering. It's from Khalid al-Sahim, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jordan set down his spoon. The Saudi guy? From yesterday? Nia nodded, reading aloud. Ms. Harper, your assistance yesterday was invaluable. I would be honored if you would attend today's meetings as my personal interpreter. A car will await you at 9 a.m. Respectfully, Khalid al-Sahim. Holy shit, Jordan breathed. Nia, what are you going to wear? The question crashed into her like a wave. What was she going to wear? She glanced down at her worn jeans, then toward her bedroom, where her cleaning uniform hung on the back of the door. Her wardrobe consisted of practical, comfortable clothes for work and home, nothing suitable for a high-stakes business meeting. I don't know, she admitted. I don't exactly have corporate attire. Jordan was already reaching for his phone. Call Anna. Maybe. She knows someone your size. I'll check what's in our emergency fund. Nia put a hand on his arm. Jordan, no. That money is for actual emergencies. He looked up at her, suddenly serious. Nia, you've been waiting tables and cleaning floors since you were 18, so I could have a shot at college. You gave up Oxford for me. If this isn't an emergency opportunity, I don't know what is. His words struck home. She squeezed his arm gently, then picked up her phone to call Anna. 2 hours later, Nia stood in Anna's apartment as her friend's sister Maria, a department store assistant manager, made final adjustments to a simple but elegant navy blue dress. It's last season's floor model, Maria explained, pinning the hem. Never sold because of a small snag I fixed. No one will know. The dress fit Nia perfectly after the quick alterations. With low heels borrowed from Anna and her hair swept into a neat bun, Nia hardly recognized herself in the mirror. You look like you belong in that boardroom, Anna declared, stepping back to admire her friend. Those executives won't know what hit them. As promised, a sleek black car waited outside at precisely 9 a.m. The driver nodded respectfully as he opened the door for her. Miss Harper, he said, Mr. Al-Sahim sends his regards. At Halberton Towers, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Nia walked through the lobby where she had pushed her mop just yesterday, conscious of every eye that followed her. The receptionist, who had never acknowledged her before, sat up straighter. Miss Harper? They're expecting you in the executive conference room. The elevator ride to the top floor gave Nia precious moments to compose herself. She took deep breaths, reminding herself that she belonged here. Her knowledge was real. Her skills were valuable. The doors opened, and she stepped into the lion's den. Walter Langford and several executives huddled near the conference room, speaking in urgent whispers that ceased abruptly when they spotted her. Ah, Nia, Walter said, false warmth coating his words. We were just discussing the unusual situation. Behind him, Marina's face was a mask of barely contained fury. Walter continued, We've contacted an agency for a professional translator, but they can't send anyone until this afternoon. So for the morning session, Mr. Al-Sahim specifically requested Ms. Harper, interrupted a smooth voice. Khalid Al-Sahim approached from the conference room, extending his hand to Nia. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Nia shook his hand firmly. Thank you for the invitation. Marina stepped forward. While we appreciate Ms. Harper's assistance yesterday, today's discussions involve complex financial terms. Perhaps it would be best to wait for a certified translator. Al-Sahim's expression remained pleasant, but his eyes cooled. Ms. Harper's understanding of both language and cultural context proved exceptional yesterday. Unless she feels uncomfortable with financial terminology. He turned to Nia, who met his gaze steadily. I'm comfortable with the subject matter, she replied. My studies included economic development in the Gulf region. Walter clapped his hands together once. Well, that settles it. Shall we begin? The morning meeting proceeded with a smoothness that yesterday's had lacked. Nia translated Al-Sahim's words with precision, adding cultural context when necessary. The Saudi team responded positively, engaging more openly than before. Even Walter seemed genuinely impressed, though he kept glancing nervously at Marina, who sat rigid in her chair, tapping notes into her tablet with unnecessary force. During a coffee break, Nia stepped into the hallway for a moment of quiet. The plush carpet and wood-paneled walls were familiar. She'd cleaned them countless times. Yet standing here as a participant rather than maintenance staff felt surreal. She noticed Brian from IT approaching, coffee cup in hand. Hey, he said, his smile genuine. You're amazing in there. I had no idea you spoke Arabic like that. Thanks, Nia replied. It's been a while since I've used it professionally. Brian looked like he wanted to say more, but Marina emerged from the conference room, her gaze landing on them like a laser. Nia, she said with manufactured sweetness. Could I borrow you for a quick word? Brian retreated with an apologetic glance as Marina guided Nia to a quiet corner. You're quite the dark horse, aren't you? Marina said, her voice low. From mop to meeting in 24 hours. Impressive. I'm just helping out, Nia replied neutrally. Marina's smile tightened. Of course you are. But let's be clear, this is temporary. You're here because Al-Sahim thinks you're some kind of novelty. Once he's gone, things return to normal. Before Nia could respond, Marina's phone chimed. She glanced at the screen, then back at Nia with a strange expression. somewhere between triumph and calculation. Interesting, she murmured. Oxford, you said? Class of 2017. Unease flickered through Nia. I didn't graduate. I had to withdraw. Yes, family emergency. Very noble. Marina's smile was all teeth now. Well, we should get back. Wouldn't want to keep the gentleman waiting. As they returned to the conference room, Nia noticed Marina typing rapidly on her phone, her face alight with purpose. The afternoon session had just begun when Khalid Al-Sahim surprised everyone with an unexpected announcement. Before we continue, he said, I would like to propose something. He turned to Nia. Ms. Harper, your assistance these past 2 days has highlighted something my foundation has been advocating for years: the overlooked value of cultural intelligence in international business. Nia listened carefully as he continued. I would like to offer you a grant through the Al-Sahim Foundation. It would cover the completion of your education or fund a business initiative of your choosing. Your choice entirely. A stunned silence fell over the room. Walter's face cycled through confusion, calculation, and finally a strained smile. Marina's expression froze in disbelief. That's extremely generous, Nia managed, her mind reeling. May I ask why? Al-Sahim regarded her thoughtfully. Because minds like yours are wasted pushing brooms. Because you represent exactly the kind of talent my foundation seeks to elevate. And because, frankly, your insight these 2 days has been more valuable than a dozen typical consultants. The offer hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. With that kind of money, Jordan could return to college. Their debt could be cleared. She could finish her own degree. But accepting meant stepping fully into a spotlight she'd avoided for years, becoming visible in ways that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I'll need time to consider, she said finally. Al-Sahim nodded. Of course, there is no rush. The meeting resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. The executives now looked at Nia with new calculation in their eyes, no longer dismissive, but wary, as if reassessing a potential threat. Nia was gathering her notes after the meeting when her phone buzzed. With a text from Jordan. Check your email now. The urgency in his message sent a chill through her. Stepping into a quiet corner, she opened her email to find a message from Jordan with a link to an audio file. The subject line read, Marina recorded you. With shaking fingers, Nia plugged in her earbuds and pressed play. Her own voice emerged, distorted slightly as if recorded from a distance. Been underestimated my entire life. People see what they expect to see. When you're invisible long enough, you learn things they never notice. The recording cut off there, the words removed from whatever context they'd been spoken in. Nia racked her brain. When had she said this? Then she remembered a brief conversation with Anna during their break, discussing how Nia had managed to maintain her language skills while working service jobs. That a new email notification appeared. This one from Human Resources, requesting her immediate attendance regarding a matter of professional conduct. Cold realization washed over her. Marina was making her move. The HR office was clinical and impersonal. 2 women Nia had never met sat behind a desk, with Marina standing to the side, her expression one of rehearsed concern. Walter hovered near the window, looking uncomfortable. Ms. Harper, began the older HR representative, serious concerns have been raised about potential conflicts of interest and your conduct during this business negotiation. Marina stepped forward, tablet in hand. We have evidence suggesting Ms. Harper may have been less than honest about her background. Additionally, there are concerns about her motivations in this process. She played the audio clip, those same words, stripped of context, now sounding bitter and calculating. This, combined with inconsistencies in her claimed academic background. The door swung open, cutting Marina off mid-sentence. Khalid Al-Sahim stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous. What is happening here? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Walter jumped to attention. Just a standard procedural review, Mr. Al-Sahim. Nothing to concern yourself with. A procedural review of my personal interpreter, conducted without my knowledge, while I am still in your building. Al-Sahim's tone was mild, but his eyes were not. Interesting procedure. He turned to Nia. Are you being accused of something, Ms. Harper? Before she could answer, Marina interjected. There are questions about Ms. Harper's qualifications and intentions that we're obligated to investigate. Al-Sahim's gaze swept the room, settling finally on Walter. I selected Ms. Harper based on her demonstrated skills, which have been exceptional. If there are questions about her qualifications, they should be directed to me." The room fell silent. Walter's face had gone pale, while the HR representatives exchanged nervous glances. "Now," Al-Sahim continued smoothly, "I believe we have a final meeting scheduled. Miss Harper, shall we?" Without waiting for a response from the others, he held the door open for Nia. As they walked down the hallway, he spoke quietly. "Office politics can be vicious everywhere, it seems. Are you all right?" Nia nodded, still processing what had just happened. "Thank you for intervening. No thanks necessary. I dislike seeing talent undermined by pettiness." He paused. "My offer stands, regardless of what occurs here. Remember that." The next morning, Nia was summoned to Walter Langford's office. She had spent a sleepless night considering her options, talking through possibilities with Jordan until dawn broke over Brooklyn. Now, as she rode the elevator to the executive floor, she felt strangely calm. Whatever happened, she had remembered who she was. Not just a janitor, but a woman of knowledge and skill. That Walter's office was all glass and chrome, with views of Manhattan stretching to the horizon. He greeted her with forced joviality, gesturing to a chair across from his massive desk. "Nia, thank you for coming. Coffee?" "No, thank you," she replied, sitting with her back straight, hands folded in her lap. Walter settled into his leather chair with a sigh. "Yesterday was unfortunate. A misunderstanding, clearly. HR has been instructed to close any inquiries." Nia said nothing, waiting. "The fact is," Walter continued, "you've demonstrated remarkable skills that could be valuable to Halberton. We'd like to offer you a position as corporate cultural liaison." He slid a folder across the desk. "The salary is quite generous, as you'll see. Of course, you'd need to decline Al-Sahim's grant offer, conflict of interest, and all that." Nia opened the folder. The salary was indeed substantial, more than she'd ever earned. But as she read the job description, her heart sank. It was essentially a public relations role, trotting her out when diversity looked good, but with no real authority or input. A way to keep her visible but contained. "May I have some time to consider?" she asked. Walter's smile tightened. "Of course. Though I should mention, Khalid Al-Sahim signed the preliminary agreement this morning. He's made a significant investment in Halberton, with one condition." Nia raised an eyebrow. "What condition?" "That you be included in all future negotiations with his company." Walter's tone was light, but his eyes were not. "So you see, your decision affects more than just your career." The implication was clear: accept our offer, play by our rules, or risk tanking a major deal. "I'll let you know by tomorrow," Nia said. Rising from her chair as she turned to leave, Walter added, "Oh, and Nia, you're relieved of your janitorial duties effective immediately. Paid leave until you decide." News of Al-Sahim's investment and his unusual condition spread through the building like wildfire. By the time Nia reached the lobby, she could feel the stares following her. Some curious, some resentful, some calculating. Outside, she breathed deeply, trying to clear her head. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Central Park, Bethesda Fountain, 1 p.m. Khalid Al-Sahim was waiting on a bench when she arrived, looking more casual in a simple shirt and slacks, though his watch probably cost more than her annual salary. "Thank you for coming," he said, rising to greet her. "I thought a neutral location might be welcome after yesterday." They walked slowly around the fountain, tourists streaming past them. "You put me in your contract," Nia said finally. "Why?" Al-Sahim considered her question. "Because talent should be nurtured, not exploited. Because I recognized something in you that reminded me of my own journey." "Your journey?" Nia asked, surprised. "You're a billionaire tycoon." A smile touched his lips. "I wasn't always. When I first came to America as a student, people mocked my accent, my clothes, my manners. I was the Arab before I was Khalid. That's why I tested your boardroom that day, to see who would treat my words with respect, even when they didn't understand them." They paused by the water's edge. "You didn't just translate my words, Miss Harper. You preserved their dignity. That is rare." He turned to face her. "Halberton offered you a position, I assume?" Nia nodded. "Corporate cultural liaison. It sounds impressive, but it's really just a way to keep me visible but powerless." "And my offer? Have you considered it?" "I have," she admitted. "It would change everything for me and my brother. But I worry about strings attached. He finished for her. There are none. The grant is yours regardless of where you work. Though I hope you aim higher than being Halberton's token success story. His words cut to the heart of her hesitation. What would you do? She asked at Alsheim. Gazed across the park. I would remember that true power comes not from titles, but from being irreplaceable. If you join Halberton, do so on your terms, not theirs. If you don't, build something they will wish they had supported from the beginning. Jordan was coding when Nia returned to their apartment, his fingers flying over the keyboard with an energy she hadn't seen in months. Hey, he called, not looking up. How'd it go with the Saudi billionaire? Are we moving to a yacht? Nia smiled, dropping onto the couch beside him. No yacht, but we do need to talk. Jordan closed his laptop, giving her his full attention, something rare enough that she knew he sensed the importance of the moment. Halberton offered me a job, she began, and Khaled offered me a grant. Either way, things are going to change. Jordan's expression grew serious. What kind of change? The money kind? The opportunity kind? She hesitated. I need to know something. First, you dropped out of college. I always thought it was because of the cost, but was there more to it? Her brother's gaze dropped to his hands. A long silence stretched between them. I was depressed, he finally said, his voice barely audible. After Mom and Dad, after my accident, watching you give up everything for me. I couldn't handle it. The pressure, the guilt. He looked up, eyes shining with unshed tears. It wasn't just money, Nia. It was me. I was broken. Nia moved closer, putting an arm around his shoulders. Why didn't you tell me? You were working. 3 jobs. Killing yourself to keep us afloat. How could I add to that? The weight of his confession settled between them. Years of unspoken truth finally acknowledged. I'm better now, he added. Started therapy at the community center. That's why I've been coding again. Trying to build something. Nia squeezed his shoulder. Whatever I decide about these offers, it's not just for me. It's for us. For the life we both deserve. Jordan nodded, then asked the question that had been hanging in the air. So what are you going to do? The following morning, Nia walked into Halberton Towers wearing the navy blue dress, her head held high. Employees stopped to stare as she passed, whispers following in her wake. She ignored them, heading straight for Walter's office. He greeted her with a broad smile. Nia, have you made a decision? I have, she replied, remaining standing even. When he gestured to a chair. I'm declining your offer. Walter's smile faltered. I see. That's disappointing. May I ask why? Because it's not what I'm worth, Nia said simply. And because I've accepted a better one. Walter's expression hardened. Alsheim's grant. You'd throw away a career here for charity? Not charity, she corrected him. Investment. And not just his grant. This morning, I accepted a position with the Alsheim Foundation as Director of Cultural Strategy for their new North American division. The shock on Walter's face was almost worth the years of invisibility. You can't. What about our contract? He insisted you be part of negotiations. And I will be, Nia assured him. From the other side of the table. As she turned to leave, she paused. One more thing, Walter. Marina manipulated that recording and you knew it. Remember that when she tries the same tactics against you someday. Word of Nia's new position spread quickly. By afternoon, she had received dozens of messages from Anna and other cleaning staff, from executives suddenly eager to connect, and most surprisingly, from Eleanor Watts, a board member who requested a coffee meeting to discuss mutual interests. As she cleaned out her locker in the staff room, Marina appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Quite the Cinderella story, she remarked coldly. The janitor becomes a princess. Nia continued gathering her few belongings. Is there something you wanted, Marina? Just to understand how a cleaning lady with a half-finished degree managed to charm her way into a director position. Some of us worked our entire careers to reach that level. Nia closed her locker and turned to face Marina. Fully. You tried to erase me, she said quietly. You saw me as nothing but a broom to push aside. And it didn't work. She stepped closer, her voice low but clear. I won't destroy you, Marina. I'll do something worse. I'll outlive you in this place. Long after you've moved on, they'll still be talking about the day a janitor silenced a boardroom. Marina stared, momentarily stunned into silence. You don't have to like me, Nia continued. But you won't erase me. Not anymore. She picked up her bag and walked past Marina, who remained frozen in the doorway. That on her last day at Halberton, Nia found herself drawn to the janitor's closet on the executive floor. The familiar smell of cleaning supplies and the sight of her old mop standing in the corner brought a wave of complex emotions. Anna found her there, standing quietly among the supplies that had been her tools for 2 years. "So it's true," Anna said, leaning against the doorframe. "You're really leaving us for the fancy offices upstairs." "Different building entirely," Nia replied with a small smile. "The Alzheimer Foundation is opening offices near Columbus Circle." Anna shook her head in wonder. From pushing a mop to pushing papers. Who would have thought? "I'll miss this, in a way," Nia admitted, running her fingers along the handle of her old mop. "There's a simplicity to cleaning. You see the results immediately. But not the recognition," Anna pointed out. She stepped forward, enveloping Nia in a tight hug. "We're proud of you. All of us. You're living the dream we all talk about but never expect." Nia hugged her back, tears pricking at her eyes. "I wouldn't be here without you. The dress, the confidence, you helped make this happen." When they separated, Anna wiped her eyes quickly. "Enough of that. You left something behind." She reached into her pocket and pulled out Nia's old ID badge and keys. Nia took them, feeling their weight one last time, then placed them gently on the shelf beside her mop. Symbols of a life she was leaving behind but would never forget. "Promise you'll visit?" Anna asked. "Don't forget us little people." "Never," Nia promised. "You're not little, and I'm not finished changing things around here." The news broke the following week. Khalid Al-Sahim had pushed for a major restructuring at Halberton as part of his investment. Walter Langford announced his early retirement. Marina resigned shortly after, reportedly to pursue a startup opportunity, though rumors suggested she'd been quietly pushed out after questionable communications were discovered on the company's server. Jordan began attending therapy regularly and joined a community coding project that caught the attention of a youth-focused NGO. At the launch event, he stood tall at the podium, confidence in his bearing that had been absent for years. "I'd like to dedicate this project to my sister," he said, his voice steady, "who taught me how to speak even when no one's listening." From the audience, Nia watched with tears in her eyes and pride in her heart. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time in years, they were both moving forward instead of simply surviving. 1 month later, Nia sat in her new office overlooking Columbus Circle. The space was modest but bright, with framed maps on the walls and a small bookshelf already filled with texts in multiple languages. On her desk sat a familiar Arabic poetry book, the one she'd carried in her cleaning cart for years. Beside it lay a new employee training manual for Halberton Towers. On its cover, a case study title caught the light: The Nia Harper Principle, Talent in Plain Sight. She opened it to find her own story, sanitized and corporate approved, but there nonetheless, being used to teach new hires about recognizing potential in unexpected places. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Eleanor Watts, the board member who had reached out to her, stood in the doorway. "May I come in?" the older woman asked. Nia gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Of course." Eleanor settled herself, studying Nia with shrewd eyes. "I've been following your progress. The foundation is lucky to have you." "Thank you," Nia replied. "Though I imagine Halberton isn't thrilled about how things turned out." A smile touched Eleanor's lips. "On the contrary, your story has generated more positive press than our last 3 product launches combined. Sometimes losing is winning in disguise." She leaned forward. "Which brings me to why I'm here. The board is implementing a new initiative identifying internal talent that's been overlooked. We'd like your input." "Why me?" Nia asked. "I don't work for Halberton anymore." "Precisely why we need you," Eleanor replied. "You saw the company from the ground up. You know where the real talent hides." She paused. "You don't owe us anything, Nia. But this could help people like you. People cleaning floors while holding degrees, answering phones while speaking 5 languages." Nia considered the offer, thinking of Anna and the other staff who had supported her. "I'll help," she decided. "But on one condition: the program needs to include educational support for maintenance and service staff. Real opportunity, not just lip service." Eleanor nodded. "I think that can be arranged." She rose to leave, then turned back. "You know, Most people in your position would have taken Walter's offer and the easy path. You chose to rebuild on your own terms. That takes courage. After Eleanor left, Nia turned to the window, watching the city spread out before her. From janitor to director in a month. A transformation so rapid it still felt dreamlike. Yet the woman staring back at her in the reflection wasn't new at all. She had always been there, waiting for the moment to speak. Her phone chimed with a message from Khalid. Ready for next week's meeting? Halberton's new CEO seems eager to impress you. Nia smiled. The broom was gone. Her name was now on the door. And this was just the beginning. Nia's transformation from janitor to director had become the talk of New York's business world. As she settled into her new office at the Alzheimer Foundation, the morning sun illuminated the copy of Business Innovator magazine on her desk. Her own face looked back at her beneath the bold headline. From janitor to powerhouse, the voice. That changed the room. The article detailed her remarkable rise, describing her as the embodiment of untapped potential hiding in plain sight. It was surreal to see her life story laid out in glossy print, even if the narrative had been polished to emphasize inspiration over struggle. Nia was placing the magazine in her drawer when her assistant knocked lightly on the open door. Your 10 o'clock is here, Samantha announced. And this was just delivered for you. She handed Nia a plain envelope with no return address. Thank you, Nia replied. Give me 2 minutes, then send them in. Once alone, Nia opened the envelope. Inside was a single note card with typed text. Stay in your place. Not everyone appreciates a janitor who forgets her station. A chill ran through her. She turned the card over, finding nothing else. No signature, no clue to its origin. She slipped it into her desk drawer as her meeting arrived, forcing a smile. That didn't reach her eyes. The following week, Nia led a virtual negotiation between the Alzheimer Foundation and Halberton's new leadership team. The meeting was being live-streamed to Khalid and several board members who couldn't attend in person. As you can see from the projections, Nia explained, switching to Arabic to address Khalid directly. The cultural exchange program would begin with a pilot in 3 major cities. She was about to continue when the audio cut out. The screen showing Khalid's team went black, then flickered back with a connection-lost message. The Halberton executives shifted uncomfortably. Technical difficulties, Nia said smoothly. Let's take 5 minutes while IT resolves this. As the room cleared, Brian from Halberton's IT department rushed in, looking flustered. Someone deliberately severed the connection, he said, avoiding her eyes. The system logs show it was done internally, using an executive access code. Can you trace whose code was used? Nia asked. Brian hesitated before answering. It came from Marina Westfield's account, but she left the company weeks ago. Her credentials should have been disabled, Nia noted. They were, Brian confirmed, still not meeting her gaze. Someone reactivated them temporarily. Nia watched him work, noticing the tension in his shoulders. Is everything okay, Brian? You seem uncomfortable. He glanced up briefly, then back to his tablet. It's nothing. Just, things are different now. Different how? You were the janitor, he said quietly. Now you're directing million-dollar initiatives. Some people think it's happening too fast. It's weird. The word stung more than Nia expected. I see, she said, keeping her voice neutral. And what do you think? I think I need to fix this connection, he replied, effectively ending the conversation. The meeting resumed without further incident, but Nia felt a new awareness of the undercurrents flowing against her. The sabotage was subtle but clear. Someone wanted her to fail, to confirm their belief that her rise was undeserved. That evening, Nia reviewed the security footage with Halberton's head of IT security. The timestamps showed tampering just minutes before the failure, but the camera covering that section of the server room had been temporarily disabled, too precise to be coincidence. The logs definitively show Marina's credentials, the security chief confirmed. But she's filed a complaint claiming her account was hacked. Without visual confirmation, it's difficult to prove otherwise. Nia considered her options. She could push for a full investigation, but that might appear vindictive, playing into the narrative that she was using her new position to settle old scores. Document everything, she decided, but hold off on escalating for now. On her way out, she passed Eleanor Watts in the lobby. Nia, the older woman called. A moment. Eleanor guided her to a quiet corner. I heard about the technical issues today. Not very subtle, was it? You think it was deliberate? Nia asked. I know it was. Eleanor replied bluntly. The question is, what will you do about it? Nothing, for now. I don't want to give anyone ammunition. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. Smart. But be careful. The board is watching closely. They're impressed by you, and that makes some people nervous. Which brings me to why I wanted to catch you, she continued. We'd like you to present to the full global board next month. Your vision for the partnership, where you see opportunities. Nia felt a flutter of both excitement and apprehension. I'd be honored. Good, Eleanor said with a small smile. We're something memorable. I suggest deep green. It projects growth and stability. With a knowing look, she added, and it complements your complexion beautifully. Nia found herself thinking about Eleanor's advice as she prepared for the board presentation. She selected a tailored emerald green suit that projected confidence without ostentation. The color reminded her of the Arabic book covers she'd treasured. During her Oxford days, Jordan whistled appreciatively when she emerged from her bedroom. Look at you, corporate warrior princess. Too much? She asked, smoothing the jacket. Not enough, he grinned. You should have a cape. Nia laughed, grateful for his lightness. The past weeks had seen a remarkable change in her brother. His therapy sessions were showing results, and the coding community he'd joined had given him purpose. Just yesterday, he'd launched a mentorship program for younger students interested in tech. How was your meeting with the students? She asked. Jordan's face lit up. Amazing. There's this kid, Darnell, reminds me of myself before everything. He's brilliant but doesn't know it yet. He hesitated. I think I'm helping him. It feels good. Nia squeezed his shoulder. I'm proud of you. Back at you, Director Harper, he replied with a mock salute. Now go conquer that boardroom. The Halberton Global Board meeting took place in their flagship conference room, a space Nia had cleaned countless times but never imagined addressing as a presenter. 12 board members sat around the massive table, Eleanor among them, with various executives lining the walls. Nia spotted Brian in the back, there to manage the presentation technology. When their eyes met, he quickly looked away. Her presentation was concise and compelling, outlining the cultural strategy initiatives that would strengthen the partnership between Halberton and the Alzheimer Foundation. The board members listened attentively, several taking notes. Eleanor gave an almost imperceptible nod of approval. When Nia concluded, the questions were probing but respectful, all except from Thomas Belford, a silver-haired board member whose skepticism radiated from every pore. Ms. Harper, he began, tinting his fingers, your meteoric rise is certainly remarkable. 6 weeks ago, you were cleaning these floors. Today, you're directing international strategy. Some might call that suspicious. The room tensed. Eleanor shot Thomas a warning glance. What exactly is your question, Mr. Belford? Nia asked calmly. My question is about qualifications, he replied. What exactly makes you worthy of the position you now hold? Before Nia could respond, the door opened, and a distinguished older man entered. The board members straightened immediately. Professor Hadid, Eleanor greeted him. Thank you for joining us. The man nodded graciously. My apologies for the interruption. I was informed my presence was requested. Nia stared in shock. Standing before her was Professor Ahmed Hadid, her former Arabic linguistics professor and mentor from Oxford. Eleanor turned to Nia. We took the liberty of inviting Professor Hadid to provide context on your academic background. I hope you don't mind. Professor Hadid's eyes found Nia, and recognition dawned. Ms. Harper, he said warmly. It has been far too long. He addressed the board. If I may answer Mr. Belford's question, Nia Harper was one of the most promising students I encountered in 30 years of teaching. Her grasp of not just Arabic language, but the cultural nuances that inform effective communication was exceptional. He turned to Nia. I still use your paper on translation ethics in my advanced seminars. It continues to be relevant. Thomas Belford cleared his throat. That's all very flattering, Professor, but it doesn't explain the unusual circumstances of her advancement. Professor Hadid raised an eyebrow. Mr. Belford, in my experience, true talent rarely follows conventional paths. Ms. Harper didn't just translate words during her academic career. She translated intentions, contexts, the unspoken currents beneath formal language. That skill is invaluable in global business, far more than many credentials I could name. The tension in the room dissipated, replaced by thoughtful consideration. Even Thomas seemed momentarily subdued. After the meeting, Professor Hadid approached Nia. When Eleanor Watts contacted me, I could hardly believe it. The brilliant student who disappeared suddenly was now directing cultural strategy for the Alzheimer Foundation. Life took unexpected turns, Nia replied, emotion tightening her throat. Indeed it did, he agreed. But perhaps now it's returning to its proper course. That evening, Nia's phone rang with an unknown number. She answered to hear Khalid Al-Saim's voice. "Ms. Harper," he said without preamble. "I've received concerning information. Someone is attempting to discredit you online." Nia's stomach tightened. "What kind of information?" "Anonymous posts questioning your background. Leaked transcripts showing a course you apparently failed to complete. Insinuations that you are a plant with fabricated credentials." Nia closed her eyes briefly. The transcript would be from the semester she withdrew when Jordan's accident had forced her to abandon her studies. On paper, it would look like failure rather than the impossible choice it had been. "What should I do?" she asked. "Nothing," Khalid replied firmly. "They fear what they cannot control. That's why they fight it. But remember, your dignity is your defense. We will handle this professionally and discreetly." His tone shifted, becoming almost paternal. "This is unfortunately common when outsiders disrupt established systems. I faced similar resistance when I first expanded into American markets." After the call ended, Nia sat in her darkened apartment, thinking about invisible barriers and the cost of breaking them. The path forward wasn't just about her success anymore. It was about making sure that path remained open for others. The following evening, Nia was surprised to receive a dinner invitation from Eleanor Watts. They met at a small, elegant restaurant away from the financial district. "I wanted to speak privately," Eleanor explained as they were seated, away from corporate ears. Over appetizers, Eleanor shared her own story, rising through male-dominated banking in the 1980s, facing barriers both subtle and explicit. "The tactics change," she said, "but the resistance to outsiders remains." "Is that how they see me?" Nia asked. "An outsider? You're worse," Eleanor replied with a knowing smile. "You're a mirror. You reflect what they could have seen if they'd bothered to look beneath the surface." "That's threatening." She leaned forward. "You don't owe us gratitude, Nia. Not for finally recognizing what was always there. But don't let yourself become who they think you are. Show us who you are." The morning of the board vote, Nia arrived early at Halberton Towers. Eleanor had informed her that her proposal, an internal global leadership fellowship for overlooked employees, would be decided today. The program would identify talent from service and support roles, providing education and advancement opportunities. Eleanor met her in the lobby, impeccable in a tailored suit despite the early hour. "Ready for the vote?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Nia replied. "Any predictions?" "It'll pass," Eleanor said confidently. "Thomas will object on principle, and Marina will." "Marina?" Nia interrupted. "She's not on the board." Eleanor's expression shifted. "No, but she's been invited to speak against the proposal. She's claiming it's financially unsound and requesting the right to present an alternative." Nia absorbed this news silently as they rode the elevator to the boardroom. Inside, the board members were taking their seats. Marina sat at the side table, immaculate in a red dress that matched her lipstick, a portfolio open before her. The chairperson called the meeting to order. Eleanor presented the fellowship proposal, emphasizing both its social impact and business benefits. When she finished, all eyes turned to Marina. "Thank you for the opportunity to address the board," Marina began smoothly. "While Ms. Watt's proposal is admirable in theory, it diverts substantial resources to an unproven concept. I've prepared an alternative that achieves similar diversity goals while maintaining fiscal responsibility." She outlined a much more limited program, essentially a PR exercise rather than genuine opportunity. When she finished, she remained standing, her expression triumphant. The chairperson thanked her, then turned to Nia. "Ms. Harper, would you like to respond?" Marina's face registered surprise as Nia approached the podium. Clearly, she hadn't expected Nia to be present, let alone given the right to rebut. "The difference between these proposals," Nia said calmly, "is simple. One seeks to change appearances. The other seeks to change reality. One treats diversity as a checkbox. The other recognizes it as a competitive advantage. She turned to face the board directly. 6 weeks ago, I was pushing a mop outside this very room. Not because I lacked ability, but because systems failed to recognize it. How many others like me are cleaning your offices, securing your buildings, answering your phones? The fellowship isn't charity. It's strategic talent acquisition from an overlooked pool. The vote proceeded. Thomas Belford opposed as expected. 2 others abstained. The remaining 9, including Eleanor, voted in favor. The fellowship would proceed with full funding. Marina's face was a mask of controlled fury as she gathered her materials. When she passed Nia in the hallway after the meeting, she didn't speak, but her glare conveyed everything words could not. That evening, Halberton hosted a gala celebrating the partnership with the Alzheimer Foundation. The company's atrium had been transformed with elegant lighting and flowing fabrics that echoed Middle Eastern design sensibilities. Nia circulated through the crowd, accepting congratulations on both the fellowship approval and the successful partnership. She was discussing implementation details with Eleanor when her phone vibrated with an email notification. The sender was anonymous, the subject line ominous. Meet me in the archives. Tonight. Bring no one. Eleanor noticed her expression. Problem? I'm not sure, Nia replied. Showing her the email, Eleanor frowned. Could be a trap. Marina wasn't happy about today. Or it could be information, Nia countered. Someone who can't come forward publicly. After brief deliberation, they devised a plan. Nia would go to the archives, a rarely used room in the building's lower level where physical records were stored, but Eleanor would be nearby, monitoring from the adjacent room with security on standby. The archives were dimly lit and smelled of old paper. Rows of filing cabinets and shelves created a labyrinth of shadows. Nia moved cautiously through the space, her heels echoing on the concrete floor. Hello, she called softly. A figure emerged from behind a tall shelf. Brian from IT, looking nervous and disheveled. You came, he said, sounding surprised. You sent the email, Nia stated. Why all the secrecy? Brian glanced around as if expecting others to appear. Because I'm risking everything by talking to you. Marina has dirt on me. A mistake I made when I first started here. Nothing illegal, but enough to get me fired if the wrong people found out. He ran a hand through his hair. She blackmailed me into helping her. The server issue during your presentation? The leaked transcript? That was me. She made me do it. Shame colored his features. I'm sorry, Nia. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Brian. Nia replied, her voice firm but not unkind. I know. That's why I'm here. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. This is my apology. And maybe my redemption. Nia took the drive. What's on it? Recordings, Brian explained. Marina's meetings with representatives from Vertex Capital. She's been trying to tank the Al Saham deal to position her own startup for funding. There's email evidence too, all proving she was working against Halberton's interests while still employed here. Nia stared at the small device in her palm. If this goes public, her career is over, Brian finished. At least in this industry. The weight of this power felt uncomfortable in Nia's hand. With these recordings, she could destroy the woman, who had tried repeatedly to undermine her. It would be justified. Marina had manipulated, lied, and sabotaged without remorse. Why give this to me? Nia asked. Why not go to HR or legal directly? Brian looked down. Because I'm compromised. And because you deserve to decide what happens. She hurt you the most. Later that night, Nia sat in Khalid's hotel suite, the flash drive connected to her laptop. They had just finished reviewing the last of the recordings, damning evidence of Marina's duplicity. She violated numerous contractual obligations, Khalid observed, not to mention ethical boundaries. Yes, Nia agreed quietly. You seem troubled. By this opportunity, Khalid noted. Many would celebrate having such leverage over an adversary. Nia closed the laptop. I keep thinking about what it would accomplish. Would exposing her make the fellowship more successful? Would it change the culture at Halberton? Or would it just satisfy my desire to see her face consequences? Khalid considered her words. Revenge is loud, he said finally. Justice is strategic. The difference lies in what each accomplishes beyond personal satisfaction. He rose, walking to the window overlooking the city lights. Whatever you decide, remember that your actions will set the tone for your leadership. How you handle enemies defines you more clearly than how you treat allies. The next morning, Nia requested a private meeting with Marina. They met in a small conference room at Halberton, neutral territory for a conversation that was anything but neutral. Marina arrived with her usual confident stride, though her eyes betrayed wariness. This is unexpected. What could we possibly have to discuss? Nia placed the flash drive on the table between them. This contains recordings of your meetings with Vertex Capital, your attempts to undermine the Al Sahim partnership while still employed here. The color drained from Marina's face, quickly replaced by a flush of anger. You're bluffing. I've reviewed the content thoroughly, Nia replied evenly. As has Khalid Al Sahim. Marina's composure cracked slightly. What do you want? Money? A public apology? Neither, Nia said. I want you to understand something. She leaned forward. You tried to erase me, and it didn't work. I won't destroy you. I'll do something worse. I'll outlive you in this place. Long after you're gone, the fellowship bearing my name will still be changing lives. She stood, leaving the flash drive on the table. This is your copy. There are others. What happens next depends on your future choices, not your past ones. Marina stared at her, stunned into silence. We're done here, Nia said, turning to leave. At the door, she paused. Oh, and Marina? The next time you try to blackmail an IT specialist, make sure they don't have more technical skill than loyalty to you. That weekend, Nia visited the community center where Jordan's coding program was flourishing. Young students clustered around. Computers, Jordan moving between them with patient guidance. When he spotted Nia, he waved her over to meet his students. This is my sister, he told a bright-eyed boy of about 12. The one I told you about. The janitor who became a boss. The boy asked with undisguised awe. Nia smiled. Something like that. Later, as they watched the students work, Jordan nudged her shoulder. I'm dedicating the program at next month's showcase, he said. To you. Jordan, no, you built this yourself. He shook his head. I'm dedicating it to my sister, who taught me how to speak even when no one's listening. Because that's what you did, Nia. You kept speaking your truth, even when the world tried to silence you. The following week brought significant changes to Halberton. Khalid pushed for a corporate restructure as part of his investment conditions. Walter Langford, who had been semi-retired since the initial deal, announced his full retirement. More surprisingly, Marina resigned to pursue entrepreneurial opportunities, though industry insiders noted that Vertex Capital had suddenly withdrawn. Its interest in her startup, Nia's path through Halberton, was different now. Where once she had moved invisibly with her mop and cart, she now walked confidently to meetings about the fellowship's implementation. The same employees who had looked through her now sought her attention, but on her way to meet Eleanor, Nia passed the janitor's supply closet where she had spent countless hours. On impulse, she stepped inside, the familiar smells bringing a rush of memories. Her old mop still stood in the corner, awaiting its next user. She traced her fingers along the handle, remembering late nights, aching feet, and the strange freedom of invisibility. That chapter was closed now, but it had shaped her in ways she was only beginning to understand. Anna found her there, surprise registering on her face. Nia, what are you doing in the cleaning closet? Feeling nostalgic. Just remembering, Nia replied with a small smile. Well, don't get too comfortable. You belong in the big offices now. Anna's eyes grew serious. We heard about the fellowship. Is it true? Janitorial staff can apply. Not just apply, they're prioritized, Nia confirmed. The first cohort starts next month. Anna's eyes filled with tears. You did that for us. With you, Nia corrected. I wouldn't be here without you. Before leaving, Nia took her old badge and keys from her pocket. She'd kept them as a reminder and placed them gently on the shelf beside her former mop. A symbolic gesture, letting go of one identity to fully embrace another. As she stepped out of the closet, she knew she wasn't just leaving behind a job. She was closing the door on a version of herself that had served its purpose. The woman who had hidden her light was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned that sometimes the most powerful act was simply to speak. Even when no one expected to hear your voice. 3 months had passed since Nia's confrontation with Marina. The Halberton Fellowship program was thriving, with its first cohort of 20 employees, including 5 from the maintenance staff, receiving training, education support, and mentorship. Nia's work at the Alzheimer Foundation had expanded to include cultural strategy initiatives across North America, her reputation growing steadily in international business circles. That on a crisp autumn morning, Nia sat across from Khalid Alzheimer in his temporary New York office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Central Park, its trees ablaze with red and gold. "I've been impressed with your work these past months," Khalid began, sliding a folder across the polished table. "Which is why I'd like to offer you a new opportunity." Nia opened the folder to find details of a position she hadn't anticipated. Director of Global Cultural Strategy for the Alzheimer Foundation, based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. "This would mean relocating," she observed, scanning the document. "Yes," Khalid confirmed. "The position oversees our international initiatives from headquarters. It's the most senior cultural role in the foundation." The salary and benefits were extraordinary, far beyond her current compensation. But it wasn't the money that made Nia's heart race. It was the scope of the work, the chance to build something truly global. "Why me?" she asked directly. "You have advisors with decades more experience." "Experience isn't always measured in years," Khalid replied. "You possess something rarer, authentic understanding of both privilege and its absence. You've lived in multiple worlds. That perspective is invaluable for the work we do." He leaned forward slightly. "Take some time to consider. This isn't a decision to rush." That evening, Nia walked the Brooklyn Bridge, watching lights flicker on across the Manhattan skyline. The job offer weighed heavily on her mind. Moving to Riyadh would mean leaving behind everything familiar: Jordan, their apartment, the community she'd built. Yet the opportunity was extraordinary, a chance to impact cultural understanding on a global scale. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Dinner's ready. Bringing home Thai food. Big news to share." When she arrived home, Jordan had already set the table, containers of pad thai and green curry arranged beside 2 cold beers. "What's your news?" she asked, hanging up her coat. Jordan couldn't contain his grin. "The youth coding program got picked up by the national network. They're providing funding to expand to 5 more cities next year." His eyes shone with pride. "And they want me to lead the curriculum development team." "Jordan, that's amazing." Nia hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you." "What about you?" he asked, pulling back. "You look like you've got something on your mind too." Over dinner, Nia shared Khalid's offer, watching her brother's expression shift from surprise to thoughtful consideration. "Riyadh," he said finally. "That's far." "Too far?" she asked quietly. Jordan set down his fork. "Remember when I was 17 and got that summer arts program acceptance in Chicago? I was terrified to go alone, and you said, 'Growth happens outside your comfort zone.'" Nia finished, smiling at the memory. "Exactly." Jordan reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "You taught me how to survive, Nia. Now you need to teach me how to thrive, even if it means doing it without you for a while." His words loosened something in her chest, permission she hadn't realized she needed. "What about you?" "The apartment. I'm a grown man with a job and a purpose now," he reminded her. "I'll be fine. Maybe I'll even get a roommate. Cut the rent in half." They talked late into the night, reminiscing about their journey from orphaned siblings to the people they were becoming. For the first time, Nia allowed herself to imagine a future beyond the boundaries she'd accepted for so long. The next morning, Nia made an unexpected stop at Halberton Towers. The janitorial staff was just finishing their morning shift, gathering in the break room before heading home. "Nia," Anna exclaimed when she walked in. "What brings you here so early?" "I wanted to talk to all of you," Nia replied, looking around at the familiar faces, men and women who had worked alongside her, who had seen her at her most invisible. "I've been offered a position in Riyadh," she announced, leading global strategy for the Alzheimer Foundation. Murmurs of surprise filled the room. Anna's eyes widened. "Saudi Arabia? That's halfway around the world." "It is," Nia acknowledged. "And I wanted your opinions before I decide." The room fell silent. These were people whose opinions had rarely been sought on anything beyond cleaning products and schedules. "You should go," said Miguel, a quiet man who had cleaned Halberton's lobby for 15 years. "Some chances come once in a lifetime." Anna nodded slowly. "He's right. You already made it out. We just hope you keep opening doors behind you." One by one, Her former colleagues offered encouragement, not with sadness or resentment, but with genuine pride. They had witnessed her journey from its beginning, had seen her push that mop while carrying dreams too big for the uniform she wore. The fellowship will continue, Nia promised, and I'll be back to meet every new cohort. As she left, Anna walked her to the elevator. We're celebrating, not mourning, she said firmly. You blazed a trail. Now go light up the world. The Al-Sahim Foundation arranged for Nia to give one final talk at Halberton before her departure. The auditorium was packed with executives, board members, and, at Nia's insistence, staff from all levels of the company. She stood at the podium, surveying the faces before her. 3 months ago, most of these people wouldn't have noticed her, cleaning their offices. Now they listened with rapt attention as she began her talk, titled, "Don't Wait to be Seen. Speak first. Language is more than words," she said. It's power. It's presence. It's the courage to speak when silence seems safer. She shared her journey without embellishment. The sacrifices, the invisibility, the moment in the boardroom when a single sentence in Arabic had changed everything. Talent doesn't always announce itself, she continued. Sometimes it waits quietly, pushing a mop, answering phones, securing doors. The question isn't whether it exists in unexpected places, it's whether we have the wisdom to recognize it. As she concluded, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Eleanor Watts stood at the front, her usually composed face alight with emotion. Even Thomas Belford, the skeptical board member, applauded with what appeared to be genuine respect. Afterward, a line formed of people wanting to speak with her. Among them was Brian from IT, looking more at peace than she'd seen him in months. I've applied for the fellowship, he told her quietly. Not to advance, but to teach. To share what I know with others who might be overlooked. That's perfect, Nia replied. Redemption through service. He nodded, understanding. Safe travels, Nia. Thank you for showing us all a better way. The week before her departure was a whirlwind of packing and farewells. As Nia sorted through her belongings in the Brooklyn apartment, she found a small box she hadn't opened in years. Inside was a note her mother had tucked into an Arabic poetry book, her last birthday gift before the accident. The paper had yellowed slightly, but her mother's elegant handwriting remained clear. One day, your voice will mean more than your silence ever could. Nia traced the words with her fingertip, tears blurring her vision. Had her mother somehow sensed the journey ahead? The years of necessary silence followed by a single moment of courageous speech. She carefully placed the note in her travel journal, a talisman to carry into her new life. That on departure day, Jordan drove her to JFK Airport, helping with her luggage and maintaining a stream of light conversation that didn't quite mask his emotion. At the security checkpoint, they embraced tightly. I'm so proud of you, he whispered fiercely. Mom and Dad would be too. Take care of yourself, Nia replied, her voice thick. I'll be back for visits before you know it. Go change the world, Jordan said, stepping back with a brave smile. I've got things covered here. Beyond security, Nia found Khalid waiting. In the first-class lounge. He rose to greet her, his manner warm but respectful. Are you ready? He asked simply. Nia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment, the culmination of a journey that had begun with a mop and a silent understanding of words never meant for her to hear. Yes, she replied. I'm ready. As their plane soared over the Atlantic, Khalid turned to her. You know, you're not just joining a foundation, he said thoughtfully. You're becoming its heart. Nia nodded, gazing out at the endless blue horizon. The janitor who had once blended into the background was gone. In her place sat a woman who had found her voice and discovered that the world needed to hear it. From New York janitor to cultural visionary, meet Nia Harper. The headline stretched across the screen as the news segment began. 1 year had passed since Nia's move to Riyadh, and CNN International was featuring her work with the Al-Sahim Foundation as part of a series on global changemakers. What began as an extraordinary moment in a Manhattan boardroom, the reporter narrated, has evolved into one of the most innovative cultural initiatives in international business. Footage showed Nia leading a diverse team, speaking at global conferences, meeting with diplomats and business leaders. Her confidence was evident, her presence commanding without being domineering. Harper's methodology is now being taught in business schools worldwide, the reporter continued. A modern case study in recognizing overlooked talent and the value of authentic cultural intelligence. In a Brooklyn apartment, Jordan watched the broadcast with friends gathered around, cheering at each mention of his sister. The coding program he led had expanded to 12 cities, creating pathways for underprivileged youth into technology careers. She always said I should tell my story someday, he told a friend during a commercial break. Start with the mop, end with the mic. At Halberton Towers, orientation day for new employees was underway. Among them was Tasha Williams, recently hired for the janitorial team. A single mother working nights while pursuing online classes during the day. As the HR director distributed employee handbooks, Tasha opened hers to find a quote on the first page. Language is power. Speak it boldly. Nia Harper. Who's Nia Harper? She asked the woman beside her. The HR director overheard and smiled. That's quite a story. She started right where you are, cleaning these very floors. Now she runs global strategy for one of our biggest partners. The director continued. In fact, if you're interested in advancing, you should apply for the Halberton Fellowship. It was created specifically for employees like you, people with talent that might otherwise go unnoticed. Tasha clutched the handbook tighter, something like hope flickering in her eyes. 1 year to the day after her departure, Nia returned to New York for the Halberton Leadership Summit. The company had transformed in her absence, partly due to Khaled's influence, but largely because of the cultural shift the fellowship had sparked. As she entered the familiar building, employees greeted her with respect and genuine warmth. Eleanor Watts, recently promoted to chairperson of the board, met her in the lobby. Welcome back, Eleanor said, embracing her. How does it feel? Surreal, Nia admitted, looking around at the space she had once cleaned under fluorescent lights, while the world slept. But right. The summit's theme was recognizing value, and Nia was the keynote speaker. As she took the stage that evening, she surveyed the audience, executives and board members seated alongside maintenance staff, administrative assistants, and security personnel. Anna sat proudly in the third row, while Brian managed the audiovisual system with quiet confidence. I want to begin differently tonight, Nia announced, setting aside her prepared notes. She spoke in fluid Arabic, her voice clear and strong, filling the room with musical sounds that most couldn't understand. After a full minute, she paused, letting the beautiful unfamiliarity hang in the air. Then she translated herself. Don't wait for someone to speak your language. Teach them yours. A ripple of appreciation moved through the crowd. 1 year ago, I left New York with a simple belief that voices matter, especially those rarely heard. Today, I see that belief taking root here at Halberton and in companies worldwide. She gestured to the diverse audience. This gathering, with every level of the company represented, would have been unimaginable when I first pushed a mop through these halls. That change, that recognition of value regardless of title or position, is the true measure of our success. When she concluded, the applause was thunderous. The cleaning staff rose first, followed by the entire room. Later that week, Khaled hosted a private dinner at his Manhattan penthouse, bringing together key figures from the foundation and Halberton. As coffee was served, he made an unexpected announcement. After much consideration, I've decided to step back from active leadership of the foundation next year, he said, surprising everyone except Nia, who had been consulted weeks earlier. The future requires new vision, new energy, he continued, which is why I'm naming Nia Harper as my successor. Though Nia had known this was coming, hearing it stated publicly made it real in a new way. She would be leading not just a department, but the entire foundation, shaping its future and expanding its impact globally. Thank you for your trust, she said simply. I'll honor it with action. The day before returning to Riyadh, Nia attended the launch of Jordan's expanded coding nonprofit. The community center buzzed with energy as young students demonstrated projects they'd developed. Jordan took the stage, his confidence a world away from the depressed young man of 2 years ago. Every line of code you see today, he told the audience, came from someone who believed in potential, even when it wasn't obvious. My sister cleaned offices while I figured out my path. She showed me that our circumstances don't define our capabilities. He gestured to Nia in the front row. She taught me that sometimes our greatest strength is simply refusing to be invisible. After the presentation, they walked through a nearby park, falling into the easy rhythm of siblings who had weathered storms together. I'm writing a book, Jordan mentioned casually. About us. About what happened after Mom and Dad died. Really? Nia was surprised. That's personal. That's the point, he replied. People need to hear stories like ours. The messy parts, the hard choices, the moments when everything changed. He nudged her shoulder gently. I was thinking of calling it Fluent in Silence. Nia smiled, recognizing the perfect capture of their shared journey. The years of quiet perseverance followed by the power of finally speaking up. I like it, she said softly. The final week of Nia's New York visit coincided with the publication of her memoir, a thoughtful reflection on her journey from janitor to global leader. The acknowledgments page had been the hardest to write, requiring her to distill gratitude for countless people who had shaped her path to in the end, she had written simply, to those who listen when the world isn't watching, your time to speak will come. The book became an instant bestseller, resonating with people who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. Letters poured in from janitors, cashiers, security guards, and countless others who saw their own potential reflected in her story that on her last day in New York, Nia visited the Alzheimer Foundation's new cultural center, a modern space dedicated to fostering understanding between East and West. In the library section, a young intern struggled with an Arabic text, frustration evident on his face. Nia paused beside him, observing his efforts. The pronunciation is tricky there, she said, gently. The intern looked up, not recognizing her at first. I can't get the throat sound right. Try relaxing your jaw a bit, she suggested, demonstrating the correct pronunciation. Like this. The young man repeated it, his face lighting up when he got it right. That's it. Thanks, I've been stuck on that for ages. What are you studying? Nia asked. Cultural communication, he replied. I want to work in international relations someday. My professor assigned this text on translation ethics by someone named Harper. Nia smiled. Keep practicing. The hardest languages open the most doors. As she walked away, the intern turned to a colleague. Who was that? That's Nia Harper, came the reverent reply. The woman who runs this place. She used to be a janitor before she spoke up in Arabic and changed everything. The intern's eyes widened as he looked back at the retreating figure. No way. The Nia Harper? From the case study. The very same, his colleague confirmed. They say she cleaned floors for years before anyone noticed she was brilliant. Now her story is taught in business schools everywhere. That evening, Nia stood at the window of her hotel room, gazing out at the New York skyline. The city glittered below, the same view she had once glimpsed while cleaning executive offices late at night, pressing her palm against cool glass that separated her from a world that seemed unreachable. Her phone chimed with a message from Khalid. Safe travels tomorrow. The foundation awaits its future. She typed a response. Thank you for seeing what others missed. His reply came quickly. You did the hard part. You spoke. Nia smiled, remembering the moment that had changed everything. A Saudi tycoon speaking Arabic in a boardroom of blank faces, and a janitor finding the courage to answer. She had traveled far from that day, yet in many ways, her journey was just beginning. There were still voices waiting to be heard, talent hiding in plain sight, barriers to be dismantled. Her work, her true work, was to ensure that others would not need to wait as long as she had for their moment to speak. As night deepened over the city, Nia thought about the young intern in the library, struggling with Arabic pronunciation. She thought about Tasha, the new janitor at Halberton, discovering possibilities she hadn't known existed. She thought about Jordan, transforming his pain into purpose. These were the echoes of her voice, rippling outward, touching lives she would never know, opening doors she would never see. The janitor who had once cleaned in silence had found her voice, and in doing so, had helped others find theirs. Her journey had come full circle, yet it stretched endlessly forward. One word, one voice, one story at a time. What invisible talent walks past you every day, speaking languages you never thought to hear? Like and subscribe for more stories that will make you question who you overlook and why their voices might be the most important ones in the room.